Shalom, shalom, everybody. This is RJ with another episode of What's That All About? In today's episode, we're going to talk about an article we saw from Atlanta Black Star where there was an arrest of a 15-year-old black teen and asked for charges to be dismissed, citing Florida's Stand Your Ground law. So, stay tuned. We'll get into it. Shalom, family. If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. First of all, it's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or your computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast all in one place. Download the free Anchor app or go to anchor.fm to get started. Let's do it. Welcome back, everybody. This is RJ, and I have my lovely wife here on the set.
T.
And we're going to get into the details of what happened in Tamarac, Florida, where a young teenager, 15 years old, was wrongfully arrested by the police, and we'll cover the details in this clip that goes through the entire article by Atlanta Star, and then we'll get into the discussion. Atlanta Black Star reports officers facing charges in the violent arrest of 15-year-old black teen asks for charges to be dismissed, citing Florida's Stand Your Ground law. At a virtual pretrial hearing last week, one of Broward Sheriff's Office deputies charged for his role in the violent 2019 arrest of a black teenager in a Miami suburb said he was assaulted by the boy and asked that the charges against him be dropped under Florida's Stand Your Ground law. Sergeant Gregory Lacera, who faces misdemeanor charges outside of forming Deputy Christopher Krikovich in the April 2019 arrest of then 15-year-old DeLucia Roll, characterized the teen as the aggressor before a Broward County judge on Friday, September 25th. Lacera and Krikovich have asked the charges that they face be dismissed, claiming they acted in self-defense. Lacera and Krikovich were on the scene of a McDonald's parking lot in Tamarac, Florida, responding to a report about a fight when Roll's friend Gary DeRusalil was being arrested on charges of trespassing. When his phone fell to the ground, Roll tried to reach over and pick it up. Bystander footage shows Lacera shoving Roll away from the phone. The officer also pepper sprayed the teen. After Roll fell to the ground, Krikovich and another officer jumped on top of him. Krikovich punched Roll in the head and slammed his face against the ground until he was bleeding. "What are you doing? He's bleeding," someone from the crowd cried out. Lacera is on restricted duty and Krikovich has been fired. During a week-long virtual pretrial hearing, Lacera described the encounter as a scary moment. "We were being surrounded," Lacera said to Judge Jill K. Levy. "The environment was hostile towards law enforcement officers. This was a scary moment in my career." Lacera said that after Roll was pushed, the young man stood up and assumed a pre-attack posture. He also sprayed the teen with pepper spray. "He pepper sprayed me. I walked away. He slammed me to the floor and arrested me," Roll testified. The teen also said he was trying to regain his balance when he stood after he was pushed. Roll was arrested, but the charges were later dropped. He was initially charged with trespassing, resisting arrest without violence, and assault on an officer. He was left with a fractured nose and head injuries. "This was an assault," said Lacera. "Under Florida law, an assault is a threat of violence, whether or not it is expressed in words." Krikovich, the deputy who punched Roll and slammed his head to the ground, said he did not intend to push Roll's head into the asphalt. "My intent was to pin him to the floor. I wasn't picking it up. He was doing all that pushing up and I'm trying to keep him down," said Krikovich. Lacera is being represented by Eric Swartzreich, the first Florida attorney to successfully use the Stand Your Ground law to defend an officer accused of excessive force. In addition to battery charges, both officers have been charged with conspiracy to falsify records. The future of the case likely hinges on the judge's interpretation of the events captured on video. So y'all heard it, you know?
Well, my take on the whole thing, and I know you read the definition of deadly force. Another definition of deadly force is meet force with force. So in this instance, we see a young man bending down to pick up a phone that fell. And what ensued afterwards was he was pushed down by the officers. Both of them, it says, jumped on him.
Mm-hmm.
Then after that, he was shoved down. He was pepper sprayed. So shoved, pepper sprayed, fell on the ground. Both of them jumped on him. One officer punched him in the head and slammed his head against the ground repeatedly. Now I'm asking myself, where were they afraid?
Exactly.
Because if I'm afraid of someone, just like the teen said when he got pepper sprayed, I'm going to walk away. So if someone keeps coming towards you and you're walking away, how afraid are they?
They weren't afraid. And that was the thing. They were not concerned about their environment. They were only used the example or the excuse of being afraid or fear for my life because they got caught. And that's typically what happens to the so-called bad apples in the police forces. When they get caught, now it's I feared for my life. Now it's, you were a threat or you were resisting arrest and I tried to do everything I could.
See, my thing is I'm glad there were other bystanders. Because the fact that someone said, hey, what are you doing? Like they were recording it for one. And then they tried to intervene when it got too much, shows us that it wasn't really fearing for your life if they were the ones that were being the aggressor. See, policemen have all kinds of things. They use pepper spray. They also have billy clubs. They could have, there's two of them on one 15-year-old. Now, some of our children look like adults, but they still have the bodies of children. These are grown men. This is a young child. Now, they said and then it's contradictory in the story because remember he said, well, I wasn't slamming his head against the ground. He just kept trying to get back up.
Of course he's going to try to get back up. When you got your face pressed against the asphalt, concrete, like the natural reaction for somebody to do is to get their face up off the concrete because it hurts.
But then, he kept slamming his head against the ground until it was bleeding. So how many times was this done? It's just seeming like they were the aggressor on a child.
And if I recall, didn't the article say that Roll suffered like a broken nose from this incident?
He did have injuries.
And that's like, I don't know. I don't know if I could stand something like that happening to my child because like this kid is literally a year older than our youngest son, who's 14. And like, at what point in life does a black child stop being cute? And they now
well, it just depends. Remember, was it Tamir Rice was 12, 13? Was he 12 and 13?
I think he was like 12.
He was 12 when he was killed. They said that he was a tall kid. So I don't know what constitutes or at what age are they no longer considered children and they're considered a threat. In this instance, I just see them being the aggressor. I think it was taken too far and it didn't need to go that far. And also in Stand Your Ground, it says that they're able to defend themselves against serious bodily harm from an attacker. Where was this child attacking them? They never at any time said that he hit them, pushed them, or anything else. So where were they attacked?
And they got the gun. I mean, they got all the weapons on
But no,
their belt.
maybe we don't want them to use a gun.
No, but what I'm saying is like when these police officers said that, I felt fear for my life, like, bro, you got everything on your belt. Those kids were unarmed. 9 times out of 10, people of color or even white folks are unarmed in situations with the police. So like, I don't understand how these guys are fearing for their lives when they got guns, they got spray, they got cuffs, they got billy clubs.
But aren't they also taught self-defense? They're taught self-defense. I have friends that, are police officers and officers of the court and jailers, and they are taught self-defense. So I'm pretty sure there's a move they could have used to take this child down.
I think to be a little bit more specific, what you're trying to say is they are taught like de-escalation and rules of engagement, because that determines what type of force you apply based on the situation. So you don't just go from I get shoved by an individual to drawing your service weapon and blowing them away. There's levels to force on how it's matched based upon the situation.
It just seems to me that in a situation, their thinking is not all that clear. And then another thing that is really making me think about this whole thing is the falsifying records. What did they put in that police report that got them that charge? And why did one of them get fired? See, they're still investigating, so there had to be something that they found that warranted them, besides this incident, to fire that policeman.
Well, they got to make an example out of somebody, and I think that's how sometimes in law enforcement, and I don't know, anybody out there that's in law enforcement that's listening, feel free to correct us on how it goes. But when things like this happen and it gets that kind of attention, any incident that may get state attention or national attention, they got to make an example out of somebody. Somebody's going to have to fall on their sword, take the L, and they're going to protect as many as they possibly can in the process.
But this doesn't always happen.
Right, I understand that, but what I'm saying is, it's like, this ain't the first time that police officers gotten fired over doing something wrong. But the problem is when they get fired, they're able to go two counties over and go get a job working at another police department somewhere else.
I think that if you are fired and you have a record where you have continual investigations, or you have continual blemishes on your record, then you should not be able to go to another police department, because that's putting one problem from one place to another.
Just moving the problem around, and that kind of stuff just shouldn't happen.
And what's really sad about this is a child. This is a 15-year-old. He was bending down to get a cell phone, and they put charges on him when in fact he was assaulted. I would be interested to see what their investigation came back with. I would be interested if they would try to bring more charges against this child. They dropped the first set of charges, but we don't know.
And we're gonna keep a close watch on this story and see where it goes, because honestly, we're in Georgia, and that's not very far from where we are. So that we'll make sure to give some updates on this, because this is significant. I know there's a lot of listeners out there right now that have teenagers, and that's scary.
Yeah, the world is a scary place. And I think incidents like this that happen to teens, I think that might be some of the reasons some people have PTSD without going to war. If you see something like this, or you have neighborhoods that you live in where this is common, or even have an incident like this happen to you, it doesn't not affect you.
Well, that's the story of a black man, black woman's life, is PTSD. Most black people got PTSD.
And I hope the parents of this child get him some kind of help and counseling, because it has to be frightening. And I'm pretty sure that there's things that happen in any environment that could trigger this event in his mind.
Right.
So we have to pray for this young man.
That's right.
I hope that, when the investigation is done, that justice is served, even though in some instances, especially with us, it's not always served.
And you're absolutely right. And in today's world, it's a much different world we're living in today. It's almost like living in the 1960s. And as Black folks, we have to make sure that we are informing our children, educating them on how to interact with these police officers. I know that sometimes it seems like it's an uphill battle, but we have to do the best that we possibly can. And that's all at this point we could hope for. So my wife, T, I know you wanted to rant about something, and I think you wanted to talk about, was it the debate that took place?
Yes, this is just my opinion. You can take it or leave it. If you were like me, some of us watched the debate on Tuesday, and it was like the commentator said on one of the news shows. It was a shit show. It was awful. I usually try to at least look at one or two debates during an election year, but after this one, I think I'll give it a pass. I just thought it was the worst thing I've seen in a long time, and I'm just not going to be tuned in. But that's just my opinion. You can take it or leave it.
All right. Yeah, I heard the lady. That was her opinion on the whole debate thing. It was a debacle, and everybody was saying it was a train wreck, if you will. So
yeah, I couldn't even tell what they even thought about each topic. I just thought they were gonna just start fist fighting.
Now, and honestly, we're not really going to try get into the whole political scene with this, because it's just,
it would probably be several episodes, and we could probably continue doing this past the election.
Right. So
everybody has their own opinions, and I'm pretty sure that people have already formed them, but just what we saw on Tuesday was not precedential at all, and it didn't show either person in a good light.
Well, family, that concludes this episode of What's That All About? If you guys want to get a hold of us, you can email us at WTAA2020@gmail.com. We are available now on Spotify and Anchor, and we just uploaded our YouTube channel. You can also hit us up on Instagram as well, and we're constantly building on the platform. So if you guys have any suggestions on topics that you want us to cover, or if you want to be a guest yourself, if you have something interesting to offer that would be useful to the Black community, that would be extremely helpful, and we would definitely appreciate that. So with that being said, Royal Family, I bid you all shalom, and we'll see you guys on the next episode. Peace.